Hello, so after a bit of a slow start this morning, I'm working my way through my morning routine. I woke up at 7:30, but then sat in my bed scrolling on my phone until 8, and that's when I actually got out of bed. And I have been doing a fair bit of scrolling in between doing my journal and my meditation, but that's all done as well as my walk around the block. And it's now time for me to dive into my exercises here at home. Now, in terms of the gym, I'm on arms and chest next, but here at home, I think I'm going to start off with some sit-ups because I haven't done those for a couple of days. And then I'm going to hit some shrugs and some sort of bent over rear delt things. So kind of sticking with shoulders with my exercises here at home. So today I'm listening to Bedros Keuilian, who is an American public speaker. He's all about men being masculine, you know, in a system nowadays that's trying to make men more feminine because feminine men are easier to control and influence. He also talks a lot about how depression and anxiety nowadays is just dealt with by filling people's heads full of pharmaceutical drugs, whereas, you know, there are better ways to deal with anxiety and depression. So, really inspirational bloke, Bedros Keuilian. Go and check him out. All right, so it's now just gone 10 a.m. and I'm kind of kicking myself because, I got going slow this morning. I can normally get through my whole routine, including having my breakfast, in 2 hours. And that's if I go for a walk and have a 20-minute meditation. I can obviously speed things up by going for a run and having a 10-minute meditation. But yeah, when I'm slow to get going and, I'm sort of slow to get between each step of my routine, it can take 2 hours. And yeah, it's now 10 o'clock because I was so slow to get going. I didn't really get out of bed until 8 a.m. And I've been sort of slow between the steps today as well. But it is what it is. It's still better than laying in till 1 p.m, which I can quite easily do if I allow myself to. Now, as usual, I've got a busy day today. Obviously, there's videos that are already shot and, need editing, but that's just a constant thing. Still need to edit the video on this channel that I filmed yesterday. But today's one of those days where I've got a load of other little bits that I need to do. And it's one of those days where I have to keep my diary open with the list of things that I need to do. Because there's been times in the past where, I've got a load of things to do as well as my editing and, stuff on the MacBook. And then, it gets to like 5 p.m. and I've had my head in my MacBook all day and I haven't got through all these other things. So, a diary is something that I use every day. But today's one of those days where I don't only have editing to do. So I have to keep my diary open and go through those things before I sort of start, diving into editing and things like that for hours on end. But time for me to get cracking with work. All right, so I've been working through the things that I need to today, and one of them was actually to call someone back that called me earlier. I missed their call, and it's all to do with my dad, who I've mentioned on the videos before. We think he's got dementia or Alzheimer's. Things seem to be rapidly, getting worse, and he hasn't actually had a diagnosis yet because they've found something wrong with his heart, and they want to stabilise that before dealing with the memory issues. And also there's a big waiting list on the memory clinic. The NHS and stuff is under strain, but it's a free service, so that's to be expected. Now, my mum is clearly struggling with the situation. Every time I phone her, she's talking about running away. And I tried to ring her today to just sort of get some information about my dad. My dad's been refusing to take his heart medication, which is not great. So that was one of the things I wanted to ask. And my mum was like, yeah, he's taking them now, but just sounded like she was lying, to be honest. And I just sort of explained to her, like, I've been speaking to certain people, care teams and whatnot, because they've got my number as a contact. And I don't mind, answering the calls and relaying information, but it's obviously better if my mum speaks to them directly, but she's sort of scared to say anything in front of my dad because my dad's going into one all the time. He's starting to get sort of verbally aggressive. When I go around there, he just looks like a shell of a man. To be honest, it's as if my dad's already gone. He's just a miserable shell of a man. And, it's got to the stage now where my mum is struggling, but, I've sort of arranged for carers to go round there in twos so that one person can occupy my dad while my mum talks to the other one. And she just hasn't told them how bad things are. They've even said, we can provide you with this service and that service and this support and that support. And she's just refused it all. And then when I call her, she's saying things which are worrying, to be honest. Things like, oh, don't worry about me. I've got a plan. Don't worry about me. And she puts the phone down. Now, obviously, I'm her son. So, I don't want to just leave it like that. I want to be able to help. I want to, want her to answer the phone to me. But on the other hand, I'm dealing with my own mental health issues. And I'm also someone that now tries to not ignore my problems. Everything I sort of suggest to my mum, it's like, oh, no, I don't want this because I don't want people coming to snoop into my house and all this. It's like, well, there's support out there, but you have to ask for it. People will come and give you a bit of respite from my dad. They might take him out or take you out. I've got people coming around to ask how bad things are, and all you need to do is tell them. But if you won't tell them, and all you're wanting to do is moan about the situation but not do anything about it, then nothing's going to change. So, part of me wants to, do what I can to help the situation with my mum and dad. I've kind of come to the conclusion that I'm going to have to be the one that makes the decision and has to be the horrible person that decides, that it's time to put my dad in care or whatever the, options are. I'm sort of looking into these behind the scenes and speaking about these things to these sort of care teams. But if I'm coming up with suggestions and they're coming up with suggestions that I'm then suggesting to my mum, and then she's sort of coming up with reasons why she's not going to accept that help, then there is an element of, you have to help yourself. And, because I've got my own issues, I'm trying to get away from a past version of me that used to just brush things under the carpet and not take action. So as much as my mum shouldn't be risking her mental health because my dad's starting to lose his mind, at the same time, should I be risking my mental health and how far I've got in terms of, recovery from drugs and stuff to help my mum when she's not willing to do anything to help herself? So that's the situation I'm in. I'm not going to sit here and not do what I need to do to keep myself on track and not do my work, worrying about my mum. And I'm not going to be rushing up to Northampton like every time my mum puts the phone down to me. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not, like, call me selfish. But, as I've said before, like, the way I look at it is I'm the most important person in my life, because if I don't sort myself out, I'm not in a position to help anyone around me anyway. So, yeah, there's an element of my mum not helping herself, and there's an element of me trying to protect my mental sanity, that I've been working on every day, by not just dropping everything. So yeah, feel free to put in the comments what you think. Be honest. Like, am I being selfish? Should I just, risk my own mental health and, put everything on hold to rush around and help my mum who's clearly not willing to help herself? It does seem like a bit of a cry for help. So I have now gone ahead and I've referred my mum to this sort of service. I've got it written down somewhere. Yeah, the Northamptonshire Carers. So, the guy I spoke to on the phone earlier said, yes, you can actually refer your mum to that, like, if you think things are that bad. And I sort of suggested to them, right, let me try and verbally persuade her first, because that's one of the things that she turned down. So I said, let me try and verbally persuade her first and I'll get back to you. And then, once she put the phone down to me and started talking crazy, I just messaged him straight away and said, yep, I'd like to refer her to that. So, I'm just trying to do my best in terms of remotely get in touch with these medical people and, persuade them that my mum does need support when she's giving them all the signs that she doesn't. And yeah, I feel like that's all I can do, really, if I'm going to protect my own sanity as well. Yeah, it's a tough one. But, life is tough. And, the way I'm building myself up at the moment, I can take on anything. But at the same time, I need to not jeopardise how far I've come myself. All right, so it's now just gone 8 p.m. and I've just jumped in my car and made my way to the gym. Rather than waiting for my girlfriend Kat to come home and using her car, I thought I might as well get here a bit earlier. Now, I have been really productive, you know, all afternoon really. Not as much as would have been ideal. I've obviously got what's going on with my mum and dad in my mind, and my mind's been trying to draw me away from what I'm doing to focus on that. But, you know, I've just kept bringing my attention back to whatever I'm doing at the time, you know, bringing my attention back to the present moment, because the only place you can find peace in your life is the present moment, because the present moment is all there is. So yeah, I probably haven't been as productive as I could have been. The edit that I'm working on at the moment for the next video on the car channel is a bit challenging. I think it's mainly just down to my own concentration. You know, I'm finding myself sort of watching the clips rather than editing them, which, you know, is an issue of mine. So yeah, it'll be a long edit, but it's fine. You know, this is the life I choose. I was actually kind of planning to go out and run a couple of errands today, which I didn't end up doing, but you know, I can crack on with them tomorrow. I've actually got some more eBay parcels to post tomorrow anyway. So yeah, realistically, what's going on with my mum and dad has probably hindered me a little bit, but not as much as it otherwise would have if I wasn't in a position to, you know, keep drawing my mind back to whatever I'm doing at the time. Now, I have actually spoken to 3 separate people about my mum and dad's situation, medical people, since the last time I spoke to you guys. I've actually spent somewhere between 1 and 2 hours on the phone today to various people multiple times about the situation. And you know what, I'm really grateful that there's people out there that's job it is to, you know, worry about and deal with, you know, my dad's care and, you know, my mum's care. And I'm grateful that I live in a country where, you know, we've got the NHS and everything's free. But, you know, just because it's my mum, I'm not going to shy away from the way that I view the world, the way that I view people, because ultimately I know it's hard for my mum, but she needs to find a way to at least express to me and to these people that's job it is to, you know, worry about her and my dad, how bad things are. Because look, if you don't reach out and tell people how bad things are, if you don't take action in any way in your life, you know, when things aren't ideal, then things don't change, which means somewhat you've chosen to keep whatever the situation is the same. And if you've chosen to keep it the same, you've chosen not to change it, then you deserve to be where you're at. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be deserting my mum. I'm going to continue to remotely deal with, you know, this thing as much as I can, you know, speaking to these medical professions and just trying to gently persuade my mum to speak to these people, or at least let me know what's happening. But, you know, part of me does think that, you know, it is down to her, like, at the end of the day. You know, I've decided to not allow myself to not take action to improve my life. So if I'm not allowing that sort of behaviour in myself, then I can't really be allowing that sort of behaviour in other people, or associating with other people that aren't willing to do whatever they need to improve their situation. But, you know, it is my mum, so, you know, I am sort of torn between the love for my mum and, you know, my opinion on life, essentially. And look, I'd say the same to anyone out there who's watching videos like these, you know, or any videos that can potentially help you, you know, any self-help or anything like that. If you're watching these videos and you're not implementing any change in your life, like, don't expect anything to change, and do accept that you have in part chosen to be where you're at. You know, do accept that in part, at least, you do deserve where you're at. And I know that when I said that before, I might have been a bit simplistic, and I think it was Johnny Bamber in the comments who mentioned, and I am paraphrasing him, so apologies for that, but he was saying something along the lines of, you know, even though it's probably a bit simplistic to say, you know, we all deserve to be where we're at, sometimes we don't deserve the cards we're dealt, but, you know, how you play that hand is down to you. So, you know, that's what I'm getting at. You know, if you don't take any action, then you do deserve to stay in the situation you're in. You know, action is the only way to change your situation and potentially improve your situation. And taking action is always better than not taking action and just moaning about the situation you're in. I hope that's not too much of a rant, but yeah, that's just what's going on in my life at the moment. Now, I'm going to be hitting arms and chest in the gym. So, yeah, let's get in there and get this workout done. Alright, so that was a really good session in the gym. I managed to do 5 exercises plus my usual warm-up in an hour and a quarter, which is really good when you compare to yesterday where I only done 3 machines and my warm-up in 1 hour. Now, it is already late, it's actually gone 10, and my girlfriend Kat is very kindly frying me some chicken because I want to get massive, and to get massive, you have to eat massive. Now, we have just been talking about the situation with my mum and dad, and look, I don't want to go into another rant about it, but to kind of summarise, what I would say is how I'm gonna, you know, continue to move forward, and how I'd advise you guys to move forward if, you know, you're having difficulties with, you know, people you care about that aren't really helping themselves. And yeah, if you find yourself in a predicament that I'm in, you know, yes, continue to help, you know, your loved ones wherever you can, and I certainly am going to be continuing to help with my mum and dad's situation as much as I can. You know, I'm liaising with multiple different medical people about it, and, you know, I am trying to gently prompt my mum to reach out for all the help and support that is out there. But, you know, as well as helping your loved ones, you know, and building yourself up and being the best help you can for people around you, and, you know, facing the challenges in your life, you need to be willing to identify if people around you aren't on your wavelength anymore, you know, whether it be sort of friends that are around you that, you know, you might need to stop associating with, or whether it be family and people that you obviously can't just cut out of your life. It's okay to identify if they're not on your wavelength, because what that's going to do is it's going to mean that you're not going to allow them to dilute your view of the world. Because if you dilute your view of the world, especially if you're someone that's trying to progress in life and better yourself, then it's going to dilute your progression, you know. So yeah, it's okay to identify if people aren't on your wavelength, and then you're going to continue to be the best human being you can be, which is beneficial whether you are going to be continuing to help those people, like if it's your loved ones, or if you're going to be putting yourself in a position where you're going to be cutting people out of your life that aren't on your wavelength to better yourself. So look, everyone has struggles in their life. It's how you deal with them that counts. I'm certainly going to continue to deal with this head on, as well as continuing to turn myself into the best human being that I can. Tomorrow, got another busy day planned, and I will be filming it for any of you guys that would like to check it out in the next video. As always, I want to send a massive thanks to all of you that have made it this far, and I'll chat to you tomorrow.